things about that. So the big shift that she's saying happens here in this imperialist age is what she calls a shift from mankind to races. So she says in the 18th century you had lots of race thinking. She quotes Tocqueville, who wrote, she says, in the 18th century, people believed in the variety of races, as Tocqueville wrote, but also in the unity of the human species, again citing Tocqueville. In Germany, Herder refused to say that men were members of races, and even romantics still, quote, respected the idea of mankind. So you have someone like Darwin, right, who, based on his thinking, understands that there is no, species of mankind that is the highest species, right? There's going to be another one. So for her, Darwin is another one of these thinkers who undermines the idea of mankind, right? So she has a very critical take on Darwin, which is something that's wonderfully interesting to teach, especially if you're teaching this. Especially if you're teaching this in a liberal environment where people are pro-Darwinian. Darwin stands for the proposition that there's nothing special about mankind. Mankind is just one potential stage in the evolutionary history of the world that will not be the last one. And in fact, today we're having a major argument about the next stage of evolution. If any of you are familiar with Ray Kurzweil's work and the idea of the singularity, the premise of Ray Kurzweil's work, and he's one of the most important thinkers of the current age as far as I'm concerned, is that we, within the next 30 to 40 years, will have the technological ability to basically create or transform humanity into a new species, a hybrid man-machine species that will make humanity extinct. And humanity is an unmechanized, unassisted with machines species extinct. And so from Kurzweil's point of view, we will take over from natural selection and become we will determine the future of the evolution of the world. This is not opposed to Darwin, right? The idea of Darwin is we shouldn't get too attached to mankind. We're just one more species, and it might take millions of years for another one to emerge, but they will. The point of Kurzweil's is we can now speed up natural selection by human selection. This is, of course, the argument of eugenicists and imperialists, right, who want to kill savages here in order to improve the world. John Stuart Mill, one of the great liberals, of course, thought that the Indians in India were unfit to be good liberal democratic citizens and shouldn't be given those rights. But for Arendt, interestingly enough, and this goes to Kathy's question, these eugenicists, these imperialists, were not racists, right? They used race thinking. They made arguments about race, and they said we should we should try and improve the race, or we should try and separate the race, or not separate, but we try and make the world better. But most of them didn't have an idea of complete separation. They still believed that we were all members of the same human species, the idea of mankind. And even if they didn't, she says on page 183 again of my edition, there's an abyss between the men of brilliant and facile conceptions and men of brutal deeds. There were racists, and let's never deny it. I mean, again, racists. There were people who made racial arguments. There were people who acted on it. And certainly throughout history, there have been massacres. But a genocide is different from a massacre. What's the difference? A genocide is not just the killing of large numbers of people. And it's not just the killing of a large number of Turks or the large number of, take your pick. It's the killing of a large number of people with the intention of wiping them off from the face of the earth because they don't deserve to exist, because your interests justify your doing so. This is for her the transition from a world of race thinking to a world of ideological racism, or from mankind to races. And she explores how this happens in these chapters on race and bureaucracy, and then the pan movements. And what she says at the end, at one point, is that the transition from race thinking to racism is the rule over foreign populations, namely imperialism. Yeah.
I wanted to know, were there other theories that framed genocide and the massacre the same way, administrative massacre the same way that Arendt frames it? And also, what are some other definitions of racism, again, from other philosophers, in addition to Arendt? Because we know that typically there are normally several theories or philosophies that are permeating in society.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are huge questions. There are whole libraries now on the history of racism and race thinking and different theories. And even the question of what a race is. Is there really a race, or is it a social construct?
It's a social construct, according to what I've been taught. It has no basis in biological. Even people have argued that gender, right, male and female, have no biological background. That many, I'm sure you've read these studies, that many men and women used to be sort of hermaphrodites used to be tweaked at birth through surgeries or other things to fit into one category or the other.